Look, I know how it is after games like this. It's going to be a fan base divided amongst those who say, hey, look, they got to win. It's a 7 game win streak. You're going to win ugly. And there's going to be other people that are left wanting because you want to go in and just absolutely dominate a beleaguered team like the Raiders. I've got 7 or 8 plays here that I think touch on a lot of the good things and a lot of the things to be concerned about. First and foremost, before we even get into it, I agree with D'Amico. The inability to consistently run the ball, particularly against physical defensive fronts, is something that has been a problem before, and we saw it be a problem yesterday. Defensively, the loss of Azeez Al-Shire is much greater than the PFF scores would indicate. Also, depth at defensive tackle is going to be a concern moving forward. Azeez Al-Shire at least is going to come back, I think. Defensive tackle, we'll see. But let's get it off started with one of the very, very positive. Stingley with his first interception since high school. And I know, look, obviously, Genty and Geno Smith weren't on the same page here, but also just point to the deception. Stingley, it looks like he's going to be outside there, but he comes back inside on either a Palms or a cover 2 trap. So he's letting the number 1 go up to Kalen Bullock at the top, and he just plays it perfectly. It was going to be a pass broken up regardless, even if Genty had been on the same page as Geno Smith. But you throw it in the direction of Stingley, and with Danielle Hunter, I believe, on the coverage. Danielle, good job getting in his face. Or no, was that Barnett? Whoever it was Will. No, whichever one of the defensive ends that tend to play pretty well, pretty damn well. Some of the glitches in this game, really, it was just the one sustained drive from the Raiders that gave me the most headaches, and then a couple of the touchdowns were breakdowns either in tackling or coverage or what have you that need to be addressed, but there's some systemic things that go along with that. Next play, the Ashton Genty touchdown. So obviously Toa is one-on-one with Ashton Genty. Miles Bryant can't make the tackle. Toa slowing up there at the end is the thing that probably has me rattled the most. But if you see at the very beginning here, they're running a dog. They're sending extra pressure, and the old saying, if he's even, he's leaving. And I think Toa was anticipating some kind of an inbreaker here, and Genty just dinks him, and boom, play is lost right there. Credit Geno Smith for a good play. But then Miles Bryant on one of his several missed tackles of the day. You get to right here, and okay, like Ashton Genty's going to break some tackles. Toa slowing up like that. I give him a partial pass just because Toa is not that kind of a player. And I just, sometimes you have these mental hiccups where I thought, he thought maybe he was going to get knocked out of bounds. Could he have stopped him and turned it into a goal line stand? You'll never know unless he actually finished the play there. I think that's the kind of thing that Toa himself probably feels awful about. A, for just getting caught flat-footed in coverage, and then B, not completing the play. That was one of several curious moments where I wanted to say, are these guys are they really just having a letdown because it's the Raiders? Because they also don't have Azeez Al-Shire. They also have multiple practice squad call-ups or recent signees playing along the defensive line. If there was ever a time where you should be able to talk yourself into taking this team seriously, watch Ashton Genty's highlights. The tackles he broke yesterday, he's been doing that all year long. He just hasn't been able to do it successfully enough, and he had a great day of it yesterday. This is the last negative one before we get to some of the positives. He's so deep in the backfield, and I know Nick Caley took a lot of heat on this one. If you look from the beginning, watch the jump he gets, and he would have an encroachment in this game, but he times the snap count perfectly. Look at how far up past the line of scrimmage he is before anybody else. And Dalton, normally you're hoping that the end is going to read this and see that the kick out block is coming from Dalton Schultz, and he's either going to take that on, but he's so deep in the backfield that he just comes hell-bent for leather. The one thing that I thought was curious was right there, he's remember, this is a defensive end who wants sacks, but he knows it's going to be a handoff. So either because of predictability or a tell, or he just had a feeling on it. He's not thinking about CJ on a potential flip. This could have been a potential little flip throw to Dalton Schultz. This was ugly. This was that series where it was just three bad plays in a row. That was not a pleasant. This was the nadir of what was going on in the offense yesterday. The one thing about the offensive line, the the Raiders are running some coverages at times where it should have been easy to run the ball. Why couldn't CJ find anybody quickly, even when the pass protection was good? Sometimes when the Raiders were running two-man, where they have two deep safeties, and then everybody's manned up across the board, the receivers have a hard time getting separation, and CJ has a hard time finding those quick throws that he's been so good at getting rid of all year long. Versus that coverage, you should be able to run the ball. And this Texans offensive line they were getting including the tight ends, they were just getting manhandled at times. They tried to run outside zone, and you had multiple guys getting destroyed. That part is something it's probably the thing that I feel least confident about their ability to fix it between now and the playoffs. But the jumbo package has its part in it. Obviously, the Texans end up having a really good fourth quarter, and that makes up for a lot of this. I'm going to give him credit for that. But this especially, Nick Chubb on the drive that really would, ultimately should have sealed the game for him. But just, he's not who he used to be, but he can do this to Lonnie Johnson. Lonnie got it rough on this series. Watch Max Crosby at the very end being the guy that makes the tackle. But credit to the offensive line here, where Trent Brown, look at big old Trent Brown, gets his block, drives it upfield. Schultz does a good job of washing. I'm sorry, that's Stover. Stover does a good job of washing Crosby down. And then Christian Kirk got just enough of his guy for long enough that Chubb, who's still very strong, even though he's not as explosive as he used to be, was able to sustain that drive or keep that drive going on 3rd and 1. I think Woody Marks not being in the game made a difference, obviously. Particularly, I think, in the fourth quarter when there were a couple times where Jawar Jordan got tackled shy of the sticks. And I think just through a combination of not quite having the awareness that he could have just made it for the sticks and he was still juking a little bit, but then also by his body size and everything, he doesn't have that same knack yet, at least, that Woody Marks does for just grinding his way to get that first down marker. And I think there's some instances in this game, like on a couple of those plays, where Woody Marks probably would have gotten the first down. So the running back room right now doesn't have any Joe Mixons in it. But I think Woody Marks does bring something that you're not necessarily going to get from Jawar Jordan. But I certainly think that there's value in Jawar Jordan, and we saw it on that drive in the fourth quarter when CJ started finding Cade Stover, finding Xavier Hutchinson, finding Jawar Jordan, kind of just realizing where the actual opportunities were. That's why I give credit to CJ and Nick Caley for figuring out in the flow of the game what was going to work by the fourth quarter. And this is the classic kind of game where if this was Tom Brady right in the meat of his great career, you would have said, oh yeah, he struggled and they couldn't really find their rhythm until the fourth quarter when everything clicked and that's when they took over. It's harder to give that credit to a young quarterback and a first-time offensive coordinator, but I do think that there are elements to that. There's a reason that things were clicking in the fourth quarter. It wasn't like it was because they had just ground the defense down or anything. The Raiders' defense was probably as fresh as they felt all year. Nico and his 2 caused pass interferences. This is, again, with Lonnie Johnson on that same drive. This was, I don't know, man. I heard people saying oh, it's ticky-tack because he was just holding his hand or grabbing his hand. This was an incredibly catchable ball. It landed inbounds, 1 or 2 steps in front of him. Lonnie Johnson grabs his hand and pulls him back. There's nothing ticky-tack about that. That's about as textbook as it comes. You might say, well, yeah, but he's a big, strong guy. He's Nico Collins. Yeah, Lonnie Johnson is a big, strong safety. That's why he moved from cornerback to safety. He was too big and he was too strong. They look like they're going for like Lonnie's trying to take him on a promenade around a pond or something in Victorian England. It's just, no, it's not allowed. The one later on, I know people would say that it was an uncatchable ball when Nico drew the other defensive pass interference on the final drive. Look, that he got hugged, man. You get hugged. It doesn't matter whether it's catchable or not. You don't have to go into whether it's catchable or not when a guy just wraps you up and tackles you. That was another textbook case of pass interference. The Ashton Genty run, this is a classic instance of they almost played it too well initially to where guys were just trying to figure out where to get in on the action. If you watch EJ Speed, number 45, like EJ takes on the block, gets separation. The biggest thing I could say here is, I mean, boy, there's just like he was dead in the water, and you're looking at a group tackle situation that maybe EJ could have come around. Miles Bryant misses a tackle. This I'll credit Ashton Genty more than anything, because that kid, if he can ever find himself on a good football team, I think has a really bright future. But you're going to face your Ashton Gentys, your Derrick Henrys, your various other guys. One thing about the Texans defense, so Pete Carroll actually talked about the style of defense and how well it works for the Texans. But see those defensive ends right there? They're aligned in wide nines. They're going to force everything to the inside. And this is where this defense puts a lot of pressure on the defensive tackles and linebackers because everything gets funneled to the inside. And then you have those linebackers that have to read, run, or play action and stop the run inside, but then also get out to their pass responsibilities. And if you look at the defensive tackles here, you've got Naquan Jones, number 91, and you've got Togiai, number 72. Togiai doesn't do an awful job here, but he gets knocked out of the A-gap. Naquan Jones, looks like he's slanting up to a head up on that. He gets knocked out of the A-gap there, and it's just soft enough up the middle that allows him to keep it alive. And this is where two things happened yesterday. One, you didn't have Azeez Al-Shaair in their game. Two was that the Texans, without Azeez Al-Shaair, they were in nickel the entire game. The only two linebackers that played in the game were EJ Speed and Henry To'oTo'o. So I think they just either Christian Harris is still not 100% healthy, or they didn't trust him enough from what they saw yesterday. But they're trying to be out there in nickel stopping the run. It's essential that Azeez Al-Shaair be healthy, because when Azeez Al-Shaair is healthy, they can play a 4-3, and you got three linebackers in the game. They're trying to stop the run versus Ashton Genty with two linebackers in the game, which means you've got a safety playing linebacker. These things are going to happen, and just they can't have that situation in the playoffs versus the good teams. I'd prefer they not have that situation versus the Chargers next week. This is the Nico dagger. Just daggerage. And it was, look, if you watch, they're running a blitz here. Oh, I have not checked to be sure my mic was on. Thank God my mic is on. So they're running a blitz. CJ, pressure in his lap. Perfect. One elbow equals 2 feet, as they were pointing out on the broadcast. There's another angle I have here. I don't have the clip on where it was weighed. You can tell that the elbow is down before anything else. A couple of the angles they were showing during the replay on TV weren't as clear cut when they were trying to explain it, but the elbow is clearly down before anything else. CJ and his inaccuracy early on. I know the guys on the broadcast. I went back and I watched the TV broadcast when I got home last night. I know they were saying that, well, CJ's got all this pressure in his face, et cetera, et cetera. By and large, I thought the pass protection versus a four-man rush was pretty good yesterday. A lot of times where CJ had pressure in his face, it was after he had been able to hold on to the ball for 4 or 5 seconds, and then he started to scramble. There were times where pressure got through, but I think it was a smattering of a few things. One, just sometimes where he was either just being super careful with the ball. There were some times where the ball got away from him. But then there was also times where, hey, he couldn't set his feet, but it's throws that he typically makes. And he just seemed to rein it in the second half. I don't know what to make of it. Somebody had pointed to the fact that he had tape on his hand, if that was the cause of it. He got it reined in by the fourth quarter. Oh, and I forgot to put this in. The Jaden Higgins reception on that final drive, that's what I was talking about. He steps up, boom, makes a throw on the run, finds Jaden Higgins. that fourth quarter and the fact that he found Jaden Higgins, that he found Cade Stover, that he started to spread it around to guys that hadn't been all that involved earlier in the game, I thought that was a really good sign. I'm gonna take this for what it was, which was an ugly win versus a bad football team, but it's really hard to win 7 games in a row. And I heard John Harris talking this morning on the radio about just, hey, it's late in the season. Guys are tired. You see it walking around the building, and it doesn't. There's nothing simple or easy or slam dunk about it. No matter who you're facing, at home or on the road. This Chargers game is certainly a shot in the arm, I think, when it comes to just guys really hopefully being the best version of themselves. If this was a playoff game, would Woody Marks have played? Would Azeez Al-Shire have played? I don't know. I hope so. That would have made a difference. The biggest concern right now is that Ariante Ursary and Trent Brown were both injured at the end of the game. And man, Trent Brown able to walk off on his 375 pounds on his bum ankle. Hopefully that's a good sign. Ariante Ursary with a broken finger. Hopefully that's something that they can just tape a couple fingers together as opposed to having a cast, because that's a whole different dynamic. But good win. I'll hammer him for some of the negatives later on, but I'm happy with this win. I'm glad I didn't do this video last night because it was a long day. I was tired. We did get, Sean and I got Best Radio Show. We got an award, plastic trophy one of our listeners gave us yesterday. I showed it to Ron Hughley, Reginald. I showed it to Lopez yesterday. They acted like oh, that's just a plastic trophy that somebody put some stickers on, but it's an award. It's an award that we got. Sean Pendergast and I, Best Radio Show in Houston.